Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at Groot, specifically the deluxe version. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Guardians figure review goes live on the channel. Whoa, this is a massive box, and it's extremely heavy. I reckon the culprit is probably the switch-out torso section for the multi-armed look, but we'll find out in a moment once we take the lid off the box, of course. As for the box art, up front we've got an image of Groot, not the figure, but another one that is down below. His name off to one side with this textured holographic effect to it, and a read up down below. Just feel free to pause to read that. On the side of the box, we've got a loading bar as well as some waveforms. I think that's what that stuff is supposed to be. And a lot of texture on the surface. Around the back, I think this is like a music player. That's what they're going for, with Groot's name up top, with the waveform underneath it. Then we've got warnings, legal information, as well as Hot Toys store locations back there. A bit of a stretch, perhaps, but could this be seen maybe as a Groot 2-pack? Because we get a full Groot, but then we get the leg headstand thing for his second head sculpt. So you could foreseeably have both versions of Groot on display if you wanted to. Oh, and I love the artwork on this slipcover, by the way. First in-hand impressions for Groot himself. This even has some significant weight to it. He's massive. This figure is a beefcake. He's taking up almost the entire clam tray. And this is where the weight of the box was coming from. He weighs a ton. What we're going to do now is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. It's done in the usual Hot Toys Marvel hexagonal style. Will it support such a large character? I don't know, but I'm certainly going to try, because I like that the artwork is color-coded specifically to each character from the movie. Groot has this brown background with the Ravager logo on it and a pop of green up top, whereas Rocket's base is predominantly red with blue in the top left corner. Around the front, it says Guardians Volume 3 in high gloss, so that does stand out against the textured finish for the background. Groot for the nameplate. Then up top, an adjustable crotch grabber, with a much wider scoop than usual, because Groot is a big boy. The normal tighter crotch grabbers wouldn't have worked for him. We'll go over these now very quickly. We'll dive in deeper when we actually install these on the body a little bit later. Up top, you can see there's a square peg port, but down below, we've got the raw ball joints that the legs plug onto, just exposed on the inside of this hip skirt area. You have to rip the legs off the normal torso and plug them onto this one, which isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. All 6 of Groot's extended arms have bendy wires inside of them. I would have preferred a traditional hinge and swivel if this was sculpted plastic. That way we wouldn't have to worry about exerting too much force on the rubber outer layer and causing cracking or damage over time. Just something to be aware of. You can remove the blaster from his hand. Do we want to call this a hand? Not entirely sure, but let's get that out of here. All of the pistols are identical. I don't just mean the sculpt work either. Even the paint is the same. I don't like the weathering is the same between all of them. I reckon they could have had maybe 2 weathering patterns, flipped them, reversed them, I don't know. Just printing the same thing on every blaster feels a touch lazy to me. These guns are huge. These are meant to be used with his normal hands versus the extended arms. You use the smaller pistols with them. There's a lot of texture for the grips. We also have some grill detail around the front, a wash in all of the sculpt work, some speckling of black paint over the top. The base layer is this shiny gunmetal, but by far my favorite paint app is they've added this light blue airbrush shading to the top of the blaster and orange airbrush shading on the underside. It makes it look like this thing has been fired a lot. The metal has become superheated, and now it's discolored like this. How does a grenade get this disgusting? It's covered in this surface layer of dirt and grime. We also have this clip sculpted in up top. It could be because this was stored inside of Groot for a while and then he fished it out when he was in the High Evolutionaries building, maybe? Either way, it's well painted and very well sculpted. This is not how it's supposed to look. Of course, you're meant to pop a faceplate on the head sculpt and then you can complete the look. We'll do that, but not now. All you need to know at the moment in the accessory segment is we get this and it's compatible with all three faceplate options. I can't wait to try out all three of these faceplates on him. We've got the smiling one, the pissed off / neutral expression faceplate, and the wide open mouth screaming one. And lastly, some hands, ranging from these relaxed open palm ones to trigger finger hands, and the fingers are very soft and pliable. Getting those big blasters into these hands shouldn't be a massive challenge. Then 2 closed fists already installed on him right out of the box. What we're going to do now is get Groot himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. This is an interesting look for Groot. He's big, he's bulky, he's wide, he's got girth to him. He's got presence. That's important for a lot of people. But it's not my favorite one. I much prefer Guardians 1 Groot or the King Groot look from the end of Guardians 3. It's up to you to decide whether or not this is something you've been waiting for, or if you love the movie enough to warrant picking him up, then go for it. It's not my definitive Groot. He takes up a lot of space in the collection. That may be a deal breaker for you. With all of that being said, I unequivocally love this figure. I shouldn't because of all of the reasons I just stated. Something about him has won me over. It's not the smile, I can tell you that much. He can smile at me all day long. It's not going to change a thing. It probably is the presence factor. He's just imposing. When you walk into the room, he catches your eye due to how large he is. And the detail, not as sharp as some of their previous Groots. Arguably one of the most detailed Hot Toys figures, even with that being said. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Groot's first faceplate. The first of 3. The smiling one is quite expressive, and I like how wide open the eyes are. They're also glossy, so they contrast against the matte finish for everything else. Something about how wide set the eyes are, and then the hump for like his nose area above his top lip, doesn't actually work for me. I'm never going to display Groot with the smiling faceplate on. It's something different, but it's not for me. Now you see, this is more like it. It's going to be easier to work with for more poses. The smiling one in a dynamic pose might not be the best option, to be totally honest. He's got a neutral expression, and his eyes are more squinted, so with a head tilt forward, he looks absolutely pissed. Options are always a good thing, and having 3 faceplates with wildly different expressions on them, that ticks the box for me. I might not like the grinning one, but the neutral one and the screaming one, they're more versatile in my opinion. This one especially, because if you tilt the head sculpt forward, the defined furrowed brow makes him look angry, but if you tilt it up, then he looks surprised and shocked. So this can foreseeably work in both dynamic and also more whimsical poses. On the top of his head sculpt, I've never actually filmed a figure at this angle before, but there's a first time for everything. Up on top, we've got the sculpted tree ring effect, and the crest sticks up past the rest of the head sculpt, also these rubbery little twigs hanging off it. But it's the green. The green gets me because this isn't paint. Well, it is paint, but there's also some flocked, fuzzy material over the top of the green, and it's not just on the head sculpt, it's everywhere, all over Groot's body. Like, seriously, it's all over the place. Even in the tight little nooks and crannies, they've still applied that green flocking material. Why is this the first time they're trying it? I didn't think it was something missing from the earlier Groot figures from Infinity War and Guardians 1, but now that I've seen it on him, I would have loved that extra little attention to detail with that fuzzy layer over the top of the green on both of those figures. Perhaps an eventual 2.0 of them could receive this treatment, or maybe I'll just try and do it myself somehow. Right out of the box, there is some assembly required. You just have to attach the magnetic shoulder pads. We've got some foam padding on the inside, so even if you're fighting these to get them aligned correctly, you're not going to do any damage to the paint applications on the arms underneath. You could foreseeably display him without them if you so choose, but then the gaps over the shoulders, where the arm meets the body, is quite visible, and there's a distinct lack of green on his shoulders minus the shoulder pads. If you're wondering if they're specific to each side, they absolutely are. This one with the rubbery twig sticking off it, that goes on his right side, but check the instructions anyway, they tell you which one goes where. The neat thing about Groot's design is it's so busy. We've got chunks of wood overlapping other chunks of wood, and they're all at weird angles, and the vines and the twigs and the moss and whatnot. It's a perfect canvas for Hot Toys to come in and hide visible joints within all of this crazy sculpt work. Some are more hidden than others, like the two joints for the torso. From a distance, you can't really see them, but the elbow joint is more obvious. If you bend the arm, then not so much. Still, it's not like they've used these joints for the elbows, which I was expecting them to do. I'm not sure how they've managed to get this much range out of the elbow joint, while not using a traditional joint like this. Coming down to his legs, I would describe them as tree trunks for legs, but that's very literal. They're actually tree trunks. We even have the little tree ring stump bits underneath his feet. They look like they can't move, yeah? Like they're just static pieces. They are, until you drop them down. They've taken a leaf out of ZD Toys' book. Some people aren't going to like this, they would prefer them being gappy. You can just leave them down if you want. Then you can move them freely and you don't have to worry about dropping them down to get that range of motion. This is pretty funny actually. Groot's got some cake back here. He has these rubbery butt plates that are asymmetrical and quite flexible, so they will get out of your way when you're moving the legs around. I am curious to see what he looks like with all of the arms on, so let's give that a go. Oh, they straight up cooked with this. And the funny thing is, I didn't think I was going to like it. The skinny torso, the arms sticking out of him, not necessarily the iconic look for Groot that I wanted in my collection. However, now that I've tried it, I'm walking back on thinking all of that because, I will be finding a way to display him like this. Yes, the arms add a lot of depth front and back, but you could always just ditch the back ones entirely. You can't even really see them from the front anyway, depending on how you angle them, of course. All of the extra arms are bendy wire, so you can move them around and adjust the position of all of these pistols, or you can remove them entirely from the grip if you so choose. The extended torso was the one thing that I thought I really wasn't going to like, because it makes Groot very skinny. Seeing the branches sticking off the main bulk of it, it just adds some depth, and they're made of a softer PVC, so you don't really have to worry about breakage. You can grab him from the midsection and it feels sturdy as. If you're attempting to bend these ones over his shoulders and face the guns forward, watch out for the bark panels that have been glued onto the bendy wire surface, because they've popped off in a couple of places for me, and trying to get some glue that will adhere these down to whatever rubbery material this is, non-trivial. I've yet to find a glue that can actually do the job, so just be careful with how you're bending them, is what I'm trying to say. They are all keyed too. The instructions do a terrible job of telling you how to install them, but on the inside of the ports it says ABC, then on the end of the keys that you use to plug these into the torso, they also say ABC. Follow the letters, you're going to be perfectly fine. Very quickly, this is how I'm going to rock him. No back arms because they add way too much depth, front arms only. I was never going to be able to accommodate him with everything on. If you have the depth in your collection, I'm envious of you, because other figures were going to get blocked and they were going to bump into this. Just wasn't feasible for me. Okay, now this is interesting. I randomly thought I'd try it, the chonky ab section and the bendy wire arms. While it's not movie accurate, I get that. I don't care. I am going to display him like this. We've got the best of both worlds now, the bulk that I was after for this version of Groot, and the extended arms at the same time. Weigh in down in the comments below, do you prefer the skinnier midsection? Or like me, do you prefer this option? Before we can move on to comparisons, we need to put him back to stock, and normally I do that with a snap transition, but I thought, you know what, let's just do it on camera so I can show you how these plug into his chest area. Once you have them in there, they're quite difficult to remove, especially with the camera in the way. But at least they're not going to fall out if you happen to bump him on the shelf. After you've removed them, this chest panel comes down first, then you can push the other one over the top, because this little piece does overlap the chest panel on his right side. The faceplate too, we need to go back to the stock one, and to do that, you remove the angry faceplate. It's plugged in with these 4 little pegs. I wish they'd used magnets though, to be totally honest. Then we can bring in the smiling one, push that in place, it'll close up the seam on the sides, and now he's back to stock. Very quickly before we move on, this is Infinity War Groot on the left and the new version on the right. How did we go from this level of detail and fidelity with the vines and the texture and then the dry brushing and the washes, to this? Everything is so much smoother. The only upgrade with the new one in terms of detail is the moss. If only they'd have added the moss to Infinity War Groot, he would have been perfect. If there was a way to get this much detail on the new piece, then he too would be perfect. New Groot is big, but for a quick side-by-side comparison, he is not Guardians 1 Groot big. The figure on the right towers over the new version of himself. Or is it his son? I think I remember James Gunn saying that it's not a regenerated version of the original Groot. It gets confusing. The figure on the right is still my personal favourite 1/6 scale Groot. That may not have been the same Groot, jury's still out for me. But this is Infinity War Groot, the look that immediately precedes the figure on the left. I prefer the new one. Something about the weedy string bean-esque look for skinny Groot on the right never really worked for me. Such an underrated figure. This is the Gold Magus, I believe his name is. It's Adam Warlock from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the same movie that this Groot figure is based off. Groot is taller than Adam Warlock. Scaling looks about right to me. Volume 3 Star-Lord hasn't released yet at the time of filming this video. When he does, we'll redo this comparison in his review and see if we can't chuck in a few more Guardians just to fill out the team. He's shorter than Groot too, just like almost everyone else is. Volume 3 Rocket? He's tiny compared to Groot. These two are a nice pair though. I will be having them displayed next to one another in the collection. If we do get the rest of the team, if we don't, then I'll have to figure something else out. Going over articulation, starting off with his head sculpt. It's on a ball joint at the base of the neck and another one up underneath the head itself. Combined, looking forward to there, looking up to there, a decent amount of range actually, considering what's going on with the sculpt work. We also get swivel and pivot side to side. If the shoulder pads pop off on you when you're trying to move the arms, they're just on magnets, so maybe dial in the pose first, then reinstall them. I'll try and keep them on though, just for the sake of this segment. The arms will go up to there on clicky ratchets, going forward and back, but they do flare out because of how the chest has been sculpted. There's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. No swivel at the bicep, but we do get one by proxy as part of the butterfly joint for the shoulder, and another that's integrated into the double bend for the elbow just below the second bend. Going forward to there, almost to 90. Then for the wrist peg, it's a massive hinge and swivel. His torso crunches forward to there, not a ton of range, going back further though, swivel and pivot side to side. His legs look like they can't move at all. And right now, they can't, they're locked in place. But if you drop them down, they're on ratchet joints, they'll go forward and flare out to there, going out to there, so not a bunch, swivel at the upper thigh. Single ratcheted bend at the knee, getting you to almost 90. And then a double ball peg for the ankles, good for mostly swivel and a little bit of ankle tilt. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing, I'm not sure if it's coming across on camera, but it is in person. The peg port that's hidden underneath this chest plate, that one in the middle, is visible through the gap around the front. If only this could have been moved left a touch, that way we could have covered up the gap and hidden that peg port entirely. The second annoying thing is, come on Hot Toys, how do you not give Groot moving eyes? His face plates are easily detachable, they're quite expressive, and he's got massive eyes. This guy would have, in my opinion, been a perfect candidate for moving eyes. The third annoying thing is the sculpt work is a touch smooth, I think is the best way to describe it. I was expecting more depth and grit and texture, especially considering their first attempt at Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 looked way more detailed than this guy does. The first cool thing is for all of the green sections on Groot, the mossy parts, they've flocked that. So when you run your finger across the surface and you feel them, they've got this real tactile fuzziness about them, and that just adds to the realism. The second cool thing is they went and did it. I saw this in the movie and I thought, look, we're probably going to get a Groot, but no way they're going to try and do this. I'm glad I was wrong, because seeing this in person, it's a sight to behold. He already is big and tall and imposing, but with this stuff on, it gives him even more presence. The third cool thing is the movie-accurate Groot regenerating extended arm headstand. The head sculpt is on a ball joint, so it's got articulation, and it's compatible with all 3 faceplates, so you can have whichever one you want displayed on the figure, grab your second favorite, pop it on this head sculpt, and now you can display 2 Groot heads instead of just one on the figure itself. Wrapping up on Groot based off his appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I'm of 2 minds about this figure. I like him. I really like him visually speaking. He's impressive. He's got size on his side. He's going to stand out in the collection. The moss effect is bloody brilliant. But the detail is soft. And I don't think this version of Groot did enough to be that iconic look for him that most people are going to gravitate towards, unlike what we saw in the first movie. He had his moments, he's goofy, he was in the holiday special, so that's a win. And he's got the extended arm look, that's going to immediately, for some people, seal the deal. I would still say if you're after the one true definitive Groot, pick up the one from the first movie if you can find him for a decent price. If you love Volume 3 and this is the Groot for you, I'm so happy for you because this figure is sensational. The one thing that they let me down on was the sculpted detail. How is Infinity War Groot more detailed than this guy is? The moss makes up for it, but only just. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.